Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
I'm Paulie B, or the Trollhole.
I'm Johnny B.
And I'm Simon Hall.
But together
we are
Advantage. Okay, that wasn't that beautiful. Oh, great action there with the pliers. We'll catch up in the chat in a minute. Hobby-wise, tonight I am going to be basing some 15mm Soviet Flames of War infantry, all plastic, of course, from these beautiful hard sprues. What about you, Paul?
So I'm working on one of my entries for the Salute 50 painting competition, which is a converted Chaos Trogoth. A little base there.
Nice.
I love the base. Yeah.
Go on, show me it big, Paul. Show me it big.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful model.
Just slap it up there.
Look at that beast.
Beastie.
Yeah,
very
fantastic.
Nice.
Very nice.
You do not have to walk into that at night, do you?
No, nor the troll. I'm doing everything that I can
You're a bit slow
possibly do.
there. I teed that one up for you, and you didn't quite latch onto it as quickly as I expected.
Damn it.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's all right.
I'm hobbying on anything except the 3 Romans that I need to do. I don't suppose you've got any hobby on your desk, Simon?
No, I can't at the moment till I get into our new house. Really,
Too busy.
My hobby room is my office at the moment, and I'm at home at the moment. So I've got my kids
Oh.
downstairs. Yeah. So this is my hobby fun, escaping from the family, being with you guys. So.
All right. So in the chat, who we got tonight? We've got Saffron69. We got Axanax is here. Rich John says hi all. Salute. I think that's an emoji rather than I'll see you at salute. The Head Rat is here. One of my favorite online names. It's an interesting discussion while I paint tonight. Xenomorphs from Aliens and Other Glorious Days. That's the Gale Force 9 game, isn't it? I've looked at that. I've looked at that. Do you fancy it, John?
I don't know. I've got some aliens. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. It's another thing to paint, right? Shackles
Yes,
says egg time. Exactly that. Yes. To include the games, even though I made it, just finished watching the latest Bolt Action campaign mission. It was released to members. Was that the Blood Red Skies game? Oh, just a little bit of yeah. If you're a member of a certain team, you'll see that. Friends of General Haig is here. He's all about 30 Years War, English Civil War, so we might want to touch on that a little bit.
Away at that a bit as well.
If you know Andy, he does a lot of demo games. You'll have seen his stuff. Tony Halton is here. Kevin Livesey. I have on these live streams turned into my midweek highlight. Go on, lads, getting me to buy yet another starter set. Ooh, make start. Now there are starter armies from PSC, and there's the rules. I don't know whether there's like a box set.
Well, there is a compendium set, but there's a better way of doing it now. We've gone all modern and found the way to do it due to COVID challenges. So.
Right, all right, maybe because that. Alan is here. Looking forward to hearing about plans for Division of Steel. Really enjoyed the game that Simon ran at Battlefield Hobbies.
Hello, Alan.
There you go.
Yeah.
Roxy the Riveter is here. Hi, Roxy. Rosie is here, which is John's better half. Rich M. David Waldrum. Good to see you. Paulie Pops, says David Waldrum.
That's Piccolo.
And then Nick says, yes, it was, whatever that question was. Yeah, the Blood Red Skies. Yeah. So, because he's new, Paulie B is Johnny B's older, smarter, better looking brother. All of these things are true. But Paul, just introduce yourself briefly, because you also stream, right?
Yeah, so my name's Paul Batchelor, obviously. I am a Warhammer hero, badged and t-shirted. I've been doing the hobby for 36 years. I stream on Twitch, and I have a very over-the-top Instagram where I post billions and billions of pictures of models.
And
sorry.
He's a magnificent painter. I mean, you saw that trolley he's working on. There's beautiful stuff. But you also knock it out pretty quick. From what?
Yeah, I paint really fast. Yeah, I've got I think 6 Age of Sigmar armies that I've never played a game with.
You painted. You just like knocking them out.
Yeah, painting an army in a weekend is possible if you know the skills.
But you do have a wife and a work-life balance, right?
Yeah.
All these things are possible when you have enough talent. I made a discovery this week, and it was a road to Damascus moment. Scales fell from my eyes. The rest of you probably already know this. Do you know this delightful glue? Tamiya extra thin.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kaiser, why are you still using that, mate?
What is that?
That looks like something.
Well, that sounds more manly, doesn't it? Looks like cough syrup, though.
It's that
It's
stuff.
cough syrup, yes.
It's that stuff, but in a bigger bottle for less money.
Right. Okay. I've had this for a while because this glue is great, but you get so little glue out of it because of the tiny brush.
Yeah.
That is a tiny brush.
And
the glue dried, like evaporated whilst you're putting it on, right? So, and then I was chatting to that. I'd taken a lot of glue into work because doing a bit of Warhammer builds with the kids at school in my War Games club, because they sent us some free models. And so this is the only one I had at home, and I was having to use it to build these Flames of War tanks. I was like, I hate this brush. I said to Anna, I said, have you got like a nail varnish brush or something? Just something that's thicker than this brush so the glue stays on it. He said, why don't you just use one of your other brushes? I said, well, I can't because it's obviously a nylon brush. And I'm like, they're all nylon brushes. So I took a cheap nylon brush from the works, and it's fine. So if you were struggling with this is fine after being used, not even washed. It's still okay from Saturday. Just use a normal brush because the one in here is shit. I can't tell you how long I'd struggled with this crap without thinking their brushes are also made of nylon.
It's Kaiser, when you get to the last like fifth of the bottle, the little plastic brush that's in the lid doesn't even reach the bottom of the bottle.
Yeah. I was shaking it to get some liquid on the brush.
That's terrible design. When you do that, you turn it to get the last bit out, and it drips all over your trousers, which I've done twice.
All over the models. Anyway, look, we've got a wonderful guest here, and he is wonderful. He's called Simon. But can you tell the folks at home who you are and what you've been doing with yourself? You seem to have made a game, sir.
I've made a few games actually over the years. I'm a wargaming fanatic, I suppose. At the end of the day, I started wargaming as 8. I mean, you can read some bits about me on the screen. I'll stick them up for you, but I'm not going to talk through it all. I'm just going to use these as little supports. But I started wargaming when I was about 8. I've got about 60,000 figures. I'm sorry, I should say that quieter because the wife might hear me. Then that's 30,000 figures I've got. So I've got about 60,000 figures, and I've wargamed everything from Ancient Egypt up to sci-fi and fantasy and all of it basically. But sort of by nature, I'm a bit of a designer really. I'm a game system sort of designer.
Amazing.
Yeah, I won a lot of competitions in the big battle zones of ancient wargaming over the years. But I was at heart, I'm a refight person. I really like the history, and I really like refighting historical battles and playing what-if scenarios. And I was trying to find a set of rules which would work really well for refights over the eras. I suppose I decided at the end of the day I couldn't find one that really worked for me, so I invented one. There you go. That's it. Really.
You only went and made your own.
So I made my own, yeah. Ta-da! So I was the creator of, or the inventor, if you like, of the sort of cool little triangle in the Field of Glory series by Osprey. You remember those? They were very big at one point, so I invented the core of that. So I was one of the three authors who created the version of that. And then I wanted to create something new and innovative, basically, for big battle wargaming, and with a particular mission in mind, really, which is I observed, not in this, because you're lots of modelers here, but the historical wargaming hobby is just getting older and older. So we see more grey hair and beards every year. Sorry.
True.
Yeah, you've trimmed yours, very nice.
Beards are fashionable now, though. Even boyish young ones like John have beards.
Yeah, well, it's very good. Yeah, I'm no good at a bit of stubble, but that's as good as it gets. But really, I think our hobby, to keep it going and make it really flourish, we need to encourage more players into it from many places, and we need to get more young people into it. So I sat down for a bit. I suppose I sat on the beach and thought, what will it take to get people interested in the hobby? And I thought, well, it needs something that's sort of innovative and quite catchy. So I came up with the idea of using colour in a very vibrant way and using funky dice in a way to try and get people excited about playing our kind of games. And then I started developing it and gradually fed a lot of ideas and things I liked about certain rules of the past in there, which gave great army character. And when I test played it with a bunch of people, they all loved it. So I self-published it. Cost about 30 grand to self-publish it years ago to get it going. Yeah, no, well, I backed the hobby to the sum of a six-figure sum, basically. So I had to try and invest in the hobby because basically I'm very passionate about the growth of the hobby. So, but I got all that back because they all sold. And then I tightened it up and improved it. I'm very proud to say I've got this amazing team around me who are real fanatics about it, who put a lot of effort in. And we've just revised the rules now, and there are now 3 names on the front, mine and 2 others who've been helping. So I tend to pass it on.
Credit the people who work on it, on like the GW.
Create teams, you know, get good people working together. So I've got this fantastic team. We've got an amazing set of rules. The games are pacey, fast, fun, but actually everybody says they feel as realistic as you can get it out of a pacey moving game that covers a very wide period of history. And it's relatively easily accessible because there's a small version of it. And I can tell you all about it and some of the mechanics. We can have it as a chit chat, or I can sort of walk you through the sort of concepts on the slides. The other thing that's happened is there's so many enthusiasts for it. I mean, we probably have, I think we have well over 2,500 players already. And we haven't even got close to starting in America due to COVID. We have the biggest repository of army lists ever created.
Right.
The best squad of historians working it. We have 676 army lists online.
Right, yeah, that's even up. You know, WRG couldn't even manage that. I go back to 6. I don't go back further than that. But we're in danger of you kind of talking about the things that you've got some slides. You've actually got.
I use them for us. So if you take me as a fanatic who wants to improve the hobby, I wish I could see these slides as I go.
No.
There we are.
I wasn't quite sure whether you'd started the sort of main event, so I hadn't put the slides.
I have control now. I do have control. So
you can have full control.
Don't want to bore anybody with any more of that. I've already told you all about it. Let me tell you a little bit about the specifics. So Meg is first and foremost a big battle game. So you really have a few different types of games. It's not a skirmish game. I've written plenty of skirmish games as well. I like them. They're good fun. They are by their very nature rather easier to design than big battle games, which require all sorts of bits to be interacting together. So Meg was published in hardback form by PSC in early 2020. Irritatingly, we were thumped by COVID just as that happened. So you can imagine trying to launch a new product when COVID hit. It was a little bit tricky, but it won a load of awards when it first came out. It's the only main battle set, as far as I'm aware, to have won a major award in War Games Illustrated. Because they're always won by skirmish games by the very nature of the readership. And we won first place in everything in the historical Wargaming Awards last year. So this is a multi-award winning set of rules, and there are some reasons for that, which you will see. It's playable in 3 sizes. I'm going to show you that in pictures. It has some very unique inventions all about color, what we call the color command and control, command and combat system. That it's actually got quite a few inventions for ancient history. I'll mention them here. Mike, you might want to pick me up on them as I go. But 3 big ones are flexibles, which are troops that operated in different ways in reality, but are often poorly represented by rules. Okay. Slotting formed in between undrilled and drilled, as it was often called. Two types of troops is insufficient to represent the history of troops. So I've made it 3. It makes a massive difference. Another little clever invention, which is if you read about archery and its effects, it wasn't everybody they killed, it was the chaos they caused and how they slowed people down.
Right.
Explicitly represented in the rules. For the ECW fan who's logged in somewhere, are already adapted to Renaissance, and this is a world preview. You've got a world first on your system here. Just announced that they are now going to be published hard copy by Hellion.
That's for you, Andy.
There you go.
Hard copy by Hellion, right?
Yeah,
Friends of General Haig, yeah.
Specialist in the area who published thousands of books on that wonderful period of history. So they're taking on and they're going to be publishing them from next year. So working on that.
Weren't Hellions like Spartacan Greek rebels?
Yeah, that's Helots.
Helots. Ah, right. Yeah. That's
nearly.
Right.
Yeah. There's a World War II version out in mass testing. That'll be refined later in the year. Somebody asked to know more about Divisions of Steel, as it's called. That should be out in final form later in the year. And having
that was Alid, our resident Royal Welsh Fusilier.
I remember him. I remember you well, Alid, from that game. Very good. And Napoleonics at the end of the year, and then ACW in a couple of years, and there's a fantasy set going on as well. They all use a common core. Okay, and the common core is what makes the game fast moving and fluid, and rather easy to work with. So let me first of all tell you about the 3 sizes. So we have what's called a Pacto game. A Pacto game is deliberately designed to be roughly the same size of a double DBA game from people who know DBA. So it's a 20 to 25 bases on the screen.
But much better than a DBA game, right?
A double DBA game, if you've heard double DBA.
Better, though. Better. DBA sucked.
Oh, yeah, this is... I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it, but it is vastly better. Yes. It's got a lot more character to it, okay? So it's only the size of a double DBA game. But the important thing is, in shrinking the rules, I haven't shrunk the game. All I've done is I've changed the sizes of the units, inverted commas. So in the big game, when this goes up, you'll see that those units that are spaced out there are literally files of figures or a single elephant. When I move to the next one, which is the Pacto game, all that's happened is those ones have become 4s. Okay,
you filled in the gap.
Bigger, so they got bigger. Yeah. And then if I go to the biggest version, they become even bigger still. So it's just a size variation for the units. So these are my Sassanids, my Lurkio Sassanids. That's actually the Maximus version, the biggest version. And you'll see there, instead of 2 1s of elephants, there are 2 3s of elephants. Instead of 2 1s of cataphracts, there are 2 4s of cataphracts. And that's the only difference. The rules are the same. So it's literally like playing the big game in miniature on a table a quarter the size. You're not losing out on the game experience at all.
So immediately it strikes me looking at this is there are far more maneuver elements there than I would have expected in an ancient game. There are not 3. This is my line, this is my cavalry on one side, and this is my light infantry on the other.
That's not a deployment, that's just a photograph to show you the contents. Okay, so let me explain. It's a great question, that, right? How should an ancient battle feel? Because that's the important point of philosophy. Okay, to me, it should feel as follows from all my years of reading. You basically should have 3, 4 major blocks of troops maneuvering at the beginning of the game. You have a center, you have 2 wings, you have a reserve, you might have a flank march. There are just 5 big blocks. Dip away and get going. As the game evolves, those giant battle lines start to break up a little bit, and the junior generals that comprise those battle lines will start taking actions, and it'll all get a bit chaotic. And as you get into the total deterioration of battle, those groupings that might be these 4 will start to also fall apart, and you get them drifting all over the place. So a Meg battle deliberately starts off that way. So you'll find it goes from great order, massive advances of wings and centers, to mild chaos to massive chaos in the course of a battle. And that's how an ancient battle should feel. So you're quite right, Mike. There should be 3, 4, 5 major moving parts at the beginning if you know what you're doing. Okay. Very interesting, important design feature of like I went back through 100 battles to see how they were organized, and fundamentally they are organized from the CNC down. So unsurprisingly, you start with the CNC. It doesn't matter about the size of the army. The CNC defines those 3 or 4 big blocks and says, right, okay, Johnny, you're right wing with that lot. Mike, you're
cool. Which one's right?
You're not commanding any of my troops after that. That's very dangerous.
That is exactly the commander who would reply, you're right on my right. You give him that right.
I look at it, and Paulie might be commanding the left, and I'll command the reserve. Okay?
Oh, God, I'm the socialist.
So those are the big that's good. They're the big generals that we represent in the game explicitly. So in the game, we characterize those on their abilities. Below you, there would then be 4, 5, or 6 other generals or major commanders who are commanding blocks of troops that are made up of units. And those are what those units represent. There is actually a junior general and his troops. So each of you might have 5 or 6 of those in your line doing their work for you, but we don't want to go to the level of representing the commanders individually. There's no need. It's dealt with in the system. Okay, does that make sense? So a lot of people get confused about units, and they say, well, what's a unit? And I say, well, if you were in the infantry, what would you describe as a unit? So would you describe it as, D platoon, first company of so-and-so? Would you describe it as your battalion, or would you describe it as the division or the arm? They're all units. Actually, the one that people tend to think of is the smaller one. And the smaller one, we're at too big a scale to represent. They're clustered together and fighting as maneuverable blocks, and you have to deal with that extraction. I hope that answers that, Mike, successfully for you. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And can I just so that unless you stipulate otherwise, although there's like a parent sort of set of rules behind Meg, you were talking specifically about Meg, and some of these things might be different in these other periods.
Yeah, well, clearly the structure of the thing is different, because a World War II battle doesn't feel like three big blocks in lines walking towards each other. It feels completely different. So I adapt how the system is used to the different periods to give the right feel for the period.
Magic.
But the second thing that's in these, which is length, is we've got a lot of characteristics in troops. I really didn't like, even though I was world champion of it a few times, systems that extracted millions of different troop types to one thing called a superior cavalry or whatever. I don't like that. I think it takes
B-class light medium infantry.
Yeah, well, even that I'd rather be better. But there's a lot that just said cavalry S, and a cavalry S was anything from a samurai to an Ottoman to a Hun to a. Yet to me, they're completely different when I read the history. So you'll find in Meg there are a lot of characteristics. So if you play Huns, they feel like Huns. If you play Mongols, they feel very different to Huns. If you play Ottomans, they feel very different to the other two. And if you play the Sassanids, they feel very different to those three. Yet in some systems, they're all classified the same, and that loses all the beauty of the era. So,
is one of the unique characteristics that you have massive hat?
Big hat.
Because you mentioned Ottomans there. I mean, massive hat. You know, it's like +1 to charge. I don't care what the modifier is. I want that in there.
You've just blown the entire rule system. It's not in. Damn.
You're going to rewrite it now.
But we do have big shield. We do have big shield. It's a feature called shield covers, for instance. So if troops have massive shields and can hide behind shields and protect themselves, they get a characteristic called shield cover. And if they use it, it helps protect them from arrows, for example. Some other troops have got a characteristic called shoot and charge. They were actually very adept at getting close to people, throwing missiles, and then charging.
With your Legion arm, your pile arm legionaries get that?
Yeah. Pile arm, you have something different called the impact weapon, which does a double whammy. But Franks, for instance, you know, if you get the Franks with the Francescas, things like that, they will be thrown.
Franks is a funny one. I'm not sure that we know what we're talking about when we say Franks, but that is a long conversation. You know what I mean? For another day.
That's a long conversation, yeah. But the Pilum, the Pilum is represented and is quite dangerous. We have other characteristics like shield wall, things that are very good at resisting a charge. So actually, late Romans get quite a lot of late Romans get shield wall. Quite resilient, but they don't have the power of the Pilum to stop the rest of the damage. They've now switched to short spears and javelins and darts and such things. So with all that character for troop types, with 30 characteristics probably in total to play around with, you can represent any troop type and make it feel right. And that was my big objective, really. I wanted them all to feel right. So I didn't want my samurai to characterize them bow superior, because I once played Sekigahara as a battle with 13 people. We lined up opposite each other and nobody made contact because they killed each other as bow before they even reached each other. It was so.
And the bow is very early samurai, right?
Yeah.
Jack Cousins was brought up on it because you mentioned these other periods. How would are you familiar with the Warlord Epic Plastics range, which they're very much their new direction at the moment? They've got American Civil War.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah.
They've just said they're doing English Civil War. So their stands are 6x2 centimeters. Would they work for Meg?
Yes, they work for Meg. Meg's base size neutral as long as both sides use the same. So you can play it with people. We play it with people who have had things based for sword point that are 40x40, and people who play an impetus at 120x60. You can play with any size you like.
As long as the other guy's got the same.
Exactly, yeah. Because the whole game is built around base widths. So you choose your base width and then it works. So it's fine.
Okay.
There's a standard version to use, which we use at events, because obviously at events everybody needs to have the same version. And
and you're going to ship them with bases, right?
Exactly.
People expect that.
Then you can sabo them and whatever. But we've chosen what most people had through the years of development of things. So 40mm frontage and 60mm frontage for 15. Basically for continuity, so people didn't have to raid base thousands of figures.
From 40 DBA and 7th, it was 7th edition of like DBA plus.
The other way around. No. It went to 5th edition and 6th edition had individual figures that you took off. Then you switched to 7th and went into bases, and those bases carried on through all the DBA, DBM,
stuff.
etc.
The Alex, you might come to this talking about what he was really interested in the pre-battle phase with Meg.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's another invention. I'll cover a few inventions now because they are interesting. The pre-battle system comes from, again, reading history. My view, and it's hard to argue with, is that the great generals did at least half their work before the battle.
Yeah,
and that's not easy to represent in a tabletop war game. But I find
I read a book once
You did well. Did you get all the way through it?
Thank you. Nearly.
It's not bad. Okay, we'll count that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, back to ping. We had so I invented a system which you can play a mini game, and it lasts about 5 minutes, and it's designed so that a higher quality general with good scouting will, on average, be able to maneuver the battle into a battlefield more to their advantage than the opposite. So it's got a nice realistic game going, and battles end up being fought as they were in ancient history with either secure flanks or not, and the secure flank might be a river or a waterway, a mountain range, forests, or nothing. And then there were different densities of terrain. So if you go out there with Caesar as a legendary general with a Roman army, you'll probably have 9 PBS cards. So you have 9 cards to play this game. And if I'm a poor quality Persian general with not many scouts, I'll have 5. And we'll play this little game. And on average, you'll maneuver me around that board to get the table you want rather than the table I want. And
it's a completely separate mini game. You play with like a hand of cards, right?
Yes, exactly. And it takes about 5. Alad will tell you it takes probably 5 to 10 minutes to play that game and then lay out the relevant terrain. So I've played with a very good Hunnic general once and had somebody deploy their army 5 days before the battle, as we say, on the edge of a mountain range, surrounded by terrain. And over the following 5 days, by foraging, forcing them to get food by whatever, I pulled them away from the mountain range all the way into some open ground with no secure flanks at all, and then I killed them. Okay,
right, and that's all this pre-game story done in farming, because I know that's one of the things. There's a lot of fans online of the Lardy games, and one of the things that they bring is they usually have a pre-game system.
Yes,
as well. You know, it seems to be kind of a feature creeping into modern gaming. And you're right. I mean, I read. Oh gosh, well, I read a whole bunch of things. I remember certainly the stuff about the Second Punic War on the First Punic War. Sorry, it's the one on Sicily, isn't it? Entirely on Sicily. Yeah, and there's an enormous amount of that book was not so much to the battles, but to the like, are we going to fight today? Are we not going to fight today?
Yeah, and often the generals would deploy their armies, look at each other for a bit, and go, "No, not
neither of them fancied it." They go back to camp.
Go back, move the camp, set up somewhere else. Hope they'll fight them somewhere else. Deploy again, see if they're up for it.
And this can go on for weeks in some cases.
Yes, it could. So this represents very well a sort of 5 days before the battle of manoeuvring around to try and get an advantage. Okay.
Yeah,
and but it has to be slick, because if it's not slick and quick, it eats too much game time.
Because it's not what we're there to do, right?
Not what we're there to do. You don't. Yeah, exactly. You don't get.
I want to roll dice, and I want to kill little men. That's what I'm here to do.
Exactly. It's about rolling dice and taking casualties off. That's basically what we're going to get on with. So it deals with that bit. I'll deal with a couple of other quick inventions. Doesn't matter. They'll all be interesting. So flexibles. Reading back through ancient history, always been issues with things like the Roman auxiliary is a classic and Huns are another classic. Are they loose order or are they close order? And there's been a debate about that for so long, because the answer is they're both. If you read what they could do, they were designed to open up formation and fight in terrain, but they were just as capable as legionaries of following a very tight line and fighting in the open. So these rules describe them as flexibles, and they can do both and switch between the two roles. Similarly, Huns, the classic Huns, if you read what they did, is they skirmished like crazy and concentrated fire on one bit of the enemy, and then they reformed into quite a tight group and charged. So they're not loose. Okay, they're not loose, or they're both. So our Hunnic cavalry are called flexibles, and you can switch them between skirmish formation and closed-up formation during the game.
Right.
And that's the set through a lot of troop types. If you read about the Gauls properly, you'll find that the lowland Gauls, because they were used to facing people on horses, knew very well how to form tight clusters to make them invulnerable. So they are flexibles. The Highland Gauls lived in the hillsides, had no experience of it, and couldn't do it, and were very vulnerable if you caught them in the open. So they are defined as loose. So all this wonderful stuff gives you enormous character. The same with the additions of formed is drilled troops are very maneuverable. Tribal troops are not very maneuverable, but it's difficult to put all troop types in those two categories because they weren't. So I've invented formed in the middle for these rules. So we've got 3 categories, not 2. And actually on average in any system design, 3 is a great number. 3 gives you a lot of variety that 2 doesn't. So
it's a magic number.
It's a magic number. It's my favorite number. In fact, a lot of the best games I find are built out of 3 choices, multiplying each other to give you diversity. And that's what Meg is based on, basically, the fundamental design principle.
So as the player, and here I am, I'm playing Meg. I've got my legion in the middle in a nice squared up block.
Yeah.
They're painted red because that's how it is in all the art books. Never mind the history.
Yeah.
I've got my auxiliary on the flanks.
Yeah.
How are these auxiliary gonna do I have to choose at the beginning whether they're like, and it's like, right, today you're in open order?
No, well, you choose at the beginning, and then you can give them a command to form up, or you can have them form up and give them a command to spread out.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So basically, you might form them up in tight order, tell them march towards that wood over there. When you get to that wood, break formation and try and say anything in the wood, come out the other end, form up again. You can that happens precisely in the rules, but it'll take you some command skill and cards to do it. So don't do it with the crap general because he'll probably at the wrong time. Yeah.
And just because you mentioned it there, and just to sort of clarify what you're saying, you presumably underneath what you just said is formed troops in terrain are boned, and open order troops in the open are equally boned.
Yes. So they all have
to be formed up on the flat, and you want to be in open order in terrain.
Yeah, and if you're a troop type that can't do open order and try it, you'll be in trouble. So don't take a pike phalanx in a forest. They really won't find that very nice at all. You know, they'll struggle and they resort to swords, but they won't do very well. And an average Imperial Roman legionary who isn't just designed to fight in the tight maniples of the early mid-Republican period will cut them to ribbons. You know, forest, and they would in reality, and they did in real life. And actually, the later Romans were more used to fighting dispersed and as focused on sword combatants who were on the tight maniple formation in 3 lines, were very good in a hand-to-hand fight. So that opening scene of Gladiator, where they end up fighting in a wood, is quite possible, you know, and they're perfectly capable of doing that. Much harder to do in the earlier periods. So our periods of history are all characterized, so they've got their actual character.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're talking about periods of history that they're hundreds of years apart. Is the thing about the Roman period. When you talk about late Romans, are you talking what 400 AD? Or are you talking 100 AD? You know, 300 years apart there.
Yeah. I mean, that's why when they're all clustered together as a blade. Because it starts with Camel and Roman when they had spears anyway. It wasn't even that. Then you have the mid-Republican that you love. It's my favorite one as well, the Punic War one, when you've got your 3 lines. You want to represent the feel of that correctly, but in a big battle. So our mid-Republican formations, whereas a lot of them will be 4s in the Magna game, the one I showed a little bit earlier, you'd have a 4 of late Republicans. If you actually do the mid-Republican, you get 5 because you get 2 Hastati, 2 Principes, and 1 Triara as a block. So they're more resilient. The depth gives them more resilience. But they're not flexible, so they don't want to fight in a forest. So there's a difference.
Yes. Right? Well, they've got the boys for that, the Velite.
Exactly, that's what the Velite is for. So the Velites in this are brilliant because we've got the classification to make them. Average makes them good. Protected skirmishers, so they've got some armor unprotected. Short spear, shoot and charge, melee expert. They'll slaughter any other skirmisher in the ancient world other than Agrarian javelin for good reason.
Right. So in your skirmish game, javelin men don't shoot.
No, they do shoot. But these Velites can fight as well. That's the difference. And also they're protected. So what happens, just to show you that, if you put the Velites up against the Numidians, so if we take that period of history, if the Numidians charge them, because they're unprotected, they'll suffer a lot of casualties charging the Velites. And when they get there, the Velites have got swords and they're far better at them with melee experts, so we'll slice them to pieces. Okay?
Right.
Done the other way around, if the Velites charge the Numidians, they won't suffer that many casualties because they're good shields and lots of leather armor. They're designed to survive a bit of missile fire and get to the enemy. And cheekily enough, they'll throw things back while they're charging. So they'll be doing damage while they're going in, and then they'll hit them, and they'll 99% certain crush them. And that's exactly how it should be.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
There is no way these 2 types of javelin men are in any way equal. You know, they are.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. And in these rules, they are worlds apart. Another great example is Numidian light horse. The scourge of that period, they were probably the best mercenaries in existence at that time. You find me a rule set that has
this is one of these things that's said a lot, but is rarely qualified. So I'd be really interested to know, because in the not so much in the more modern ones, but in the kind of 1960s books, history books about it, you talk about Carthaginian armies being separated between the bridled and the unbridled cavalry. That's like the important distinction. Is right. Okay, so this is the shock cavalry and this is the light cavalry, as we might think. And that these Numidians are amazing horsemen. And saying, well, okay, but they're not actually part of this shock cavalry bit.
No, they're not. No.
And so just exactly how impactful on the battle, because you don't actually get that level of detail. You might think there is, because you hear at one point the Numidian cavalry are amazing, and then you hear at another point that cavalry won the battle or whatever. It's like, these guys are skirmishers. These guys are not. They can't fight other cavalry, and they can't fight formed infantry. Their value strategically is very, very high. Their value around the back end of you, making you very worried. But they're more interested in your camp followers and your baggage. But when you don't have that, I've seen almost nothing that actually indicates the actual effect of them on the battlefield. It's all bluster.
I'll not bore you with them here, but there are some. But the problems with a lot of the history books of the 60s is they regurgitated previous ones of the 50s. And
oh, no, absolutely.
They didn't go back to the original sources properly and study them. So basically what happens is...
but I would disagree, because they had read the Roman sources. Yeah, and modern people they'd read the Latin. And the distinction that they make is bridled and unbridled.
Which is a distinction, and it's very relevant, but there are amazing unbridled horsemanship around. To this day, you can see it in action. So a bridle is a really important thing, but not a necessary...
fighting effect is what I'm debating.
Yes.
I'm not saying that their prestige, that their perceived power. I'm talking about their real, actual impact. I'm not seeing it. Well, and it's really interesting in this period, because it's really difficult to get through the bluster and stuff. There's debate now about whether Zama ever even happened.
Oh, I know.
Or whether it's just made up.
I know. Unfortunately, with all ancient history, we have that. We have to sort of apply logic and sense to what we know about the real ground on which we fought and such things. So we do a lot of that. But basically, with the Medians in this, just to explain what they are, they're very good javelin horsemen. So they're very good at throwing javelins at you. They're not very good in a fight. Okay, which I think represents what they really were. There are occasions where they reformed and ran. They're a bit like a Cossack in later life in the Napoleonic era.
Cossack was an example. You can go to a fair and you can see Cossack horsemanship, and it's amazing. Yes, but I don't know how impactful it is in battle.
Well, the Cossacks
on the horse while it's riding.
Cossacks were almost never a big effect in battle until the enemy were very weakened.
Yes, exactly.
And the Numidians are similar, except they can do a lot of the weakening, because they're quite good at throwing javelins at people and running away. But that's basically what a Numidian is. But actually, they're pretty dangerous if you have them around in a decent quantity in a supporting form, which is, if you read some of the early descriptions of the battles they were involved in, they were actually talked about finishing things off. But you're right, they never talked about them charging anything in the first place. So
and the strategic impact of light cavalry is enormous, right? Your ability to command the space, and the prestige that comes with them. And when you get the thing about the Numidians as well, which is sort of sometimes he's lost. Mercenaries said, no, either the king of Numidia is with you, or he isn't. In which case, there's bloody loads of them. It's not like it's not like mercenaries in like there is a band of Swiss pikemen in this battle.
No, it's not like
there are thousands of Numidian horsemen here with one of their princes.
Exactly, and you can bribe a few, but they only turn up in Manchester. They turn up with a prince. So you'll find in the army list, a lot of armies have a few. So you might get one unit in the total, or you take an ally and you get 4, and then it gets quite exciting. So that's exactly how it works. It's exactly the same in the way the list is designed. So so that's flexibles basically. I've talked about flexibles. Slowing effective fire, another big invention. So basically, if you shoot at people with a dice, you do damage, but if you hit them enough times, you slow their movement down. So they get stalled by the damage, and then if you have good enough generals around to hassle them through the fire, you might speed them back up again. So this slowing effect of fire is a really good reflection of the reality of missile fire. A lot of missile fire was less about the damage it did and more about the disruption of formations that it caused.
Or the making the other guy lose his nerve and charge.
Exactly.
If we can't, when we're responding to this, it's okay. That's like from a lot of the Wars of the Roses accounts. It's not the killing, it's the making the other guy come at you.
Exactly. So you cannot stand and keep being shot at in this game.
No.
Because you'll get slaughtered. The only time you can do that is if you've got massive shield covers, as I described there, hide underneath them, which is a bit like the end of Thermopylae under ancient myth.
But it still takes its toll on your nerves, though. Even if you're okay with the shield.
No, you won't want to do it. But like, even if you're sitting inside a tiger tank, it can't be much fun being hit by 37mm all around all the time. In fact, I read an article about something like that, and it's horrendous, apparently.
My brain tells me I'm safe, but my body says, "Get me out of here."
I'm telling the bits of metal flying around and everything. So it wouldn't be good. So that's another of the big inventions in the rules, if you like. So there's a game in action. That's a big game, a proper game in action. That's a Spartacus army and an Assassin's army. So
Elephants.
Big game. Yeah, that was a beautiful game. I remember that really well. It was lovely. And my biggest passion, to be honest, is giant games. So I like doing huge refights. So we use Meg to do a lot of huge refights because it's very flexible. This is one from South Africa. That's a medieval game on the Sea of Galilee around Castle Tiberius. So it was a refight with 8 players aside, played in the day, 5 times the normal figures on the battlefield, and some of the close-ups were spectacular. So I like doing big ones of those. We did one at Christmas of Chalon-sur-Marne, or Catalonia Plains, depending on what you choose to call it, with thousands and thousands of Huns against Romans. And the system was so quick, we managed to play the game twice in a day.
Nice. Wow. Okay. Now, by our standards, game as we come on to it, we are skirmish gamers mostly, John and I.
I know you are.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Paul. How do you feel about game length? What do you like?
So, well, see, my main era of gaming was the sort of late 80s, early 90s Warhammer, and then some ancient stuff. So for me, a game is you set it up, you play until you fall over, and then you continue the next day if it hasn't finished.
You're my kind of guy.
Right,
that's how that was back then.
Yeah. Excellent. I'll be sending you a copy of Rome Total with all the expansion packs, and we'll see you in a couple of months. Sorry to sort of go off track a little. I had one question for you. I was like thinking about this all day today, and I was like, I've got a question. I've got a really edgy question. It's going to be great. I'm going to ask this guy, why have you made another set of 15mm ancient rules? And you've answered, my brain is just spinning with everything you've been saying. It's very clear to me why you've done it. What you've done is created a set of rules that replicates historical troop types and lets you play these reenacted battles in a really good way. It sounds fantastic, man. You've really basically
really know your onions, don't you? And you've really put something together that's fantastic, man.
I'm very proud of it now. We're just going to get even more people playing. I mean, one of the lovely things I found is the chap called Dr. Simon Elliott, who's a doctor who writes a lot of books on Rome, and he plays MacLeod, and he's openly said this is the only rule set he's ever played that represents Rome well, ever in his entire playing career. Which is
one other question, because obviously you one of your main goals here is to sort of expand the hobby out to just everyone, I guess. And you and Kaiser are talking a lot about like historical troop types and battles that happen. Now, I like history. I wouldn't say I'm deep into it, and I don't know a lot about the different. I know that there are different eras of Rome, and I know is this accessible to someone with zero historical knowledge?
Yeah, completely.
Rules take over and give you everything you need.
It is. We're overindulging our historical love, basically. So the idea is very simple. To get people into our wargaming, we can't talk to them about history. The history comes second. It used to be when I was a kid that I pick up a book about Romans in the library, read it, and go, "Oh, they're really cool." And then I go, "Damn, there's some soldiers made by Airfix. Awesome! I'll have some of those, Dad." And then you go, "I can play a game with them. That's wicked." But we've changed era. We're in the era where the first thing that comes first is the fun game. We've got to flip it. Yeah. So first thing, it's got to be a fun game accessible to anyone. Then you start to like Romans, and then you go read about them. So we've got to realize the world is the other way up. And unless we do that, we'll lose people. So
I just want to be able to play a game when I play my tribe from where I grew up. The Cat and the Hat tribe. Cat and the Hat tribe, John.
Cat and Hat, Catavilani.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. I've talked a lot about army characters, so I'll come back to it. I'll show you why it's easy to play, okay? Easy to learn. It's easy to learn, hard to master. It's a game that's deliberately designed that you can play it for fun and chuck stuff at each other and just have a laugh for an hour and a half, or you can play it like some chess grandmaster and try and think about every detail, and it becomes a very tricky game to get perfect. That's the idea. So that's what, to me, good games are. So, and we have lots of fun, even to level in the rule book. We've got cartoon fun characters and stuff. So we don't try and take it too seriously either. Let's keep it lighthearted.
Is this the illustration style from the rule book?
They're in the rule book. Yeah, that's in the rule book. Yeah, those army things. They're on T-shirts for people as well. That's never play poker with a Carthaginian. It's a famous saying from Dave Lowerman, a Californian player, who came up with it after being done over by a Carthaginian player completely. So he lost the card playing side of the game, so said he'll never play No, so it's stuck. So I'm not going to do I'm going to go back to that. But I'm going to talk to you about dice because it's really important. There they are. These dice. These dice are
Boom.
the key to getting new people playing the game because they're fun, they're colourful, they're simple, and they're not a gimmick. Actually, at all. So there's a set of dice that have got those 5 colours. So you've got black through to red. Okay. Now, as sci-fi gamers, do you quite like the idea of lobbing a dice with a skull on it and seeing it pop up?
Only if I'm playing Hero. Only if I'm playing Hero Quest.
That'll do. I don't matter what you're playing, but it's straightforward. It's straightforward and it's simple. So basically, I've created a set of dice, damage dice, where the red one is very dangerous, the black one is not very dangerous, and the order goes like a traffic light: red, yellow, green, white, black, in that order. Yeah? Those dice have got a set of symbols on them. So in total, there are 4 types of sides you get. You get a blank. I bet you can guess what a blank does when you run it. Roll it.
Nothing.
Excellent. You're all listening. Excellent. Obviously, it does nothing. So no thinking, no referring to tables. Once you know what dice to roll, you get a blank, nothing happens. Move on to the next dice roll. Okay. You roll by file. If you get a skull on it and we're using bases against each other, what do you think happens?
You kill it, don't you?
Get a
kill
base.
You kill a base. Yeah, you've knocked a base off. So you just pick the base off and it's a casualty. That's it. Dead simple. So the other one's the X. The X is a half base kill. So you put a little marker on the unit, and if it gets another half base in a and turns into
whoa.
And the S
has got his microphone.
And the S has special effects, and that special effect is designed to represent the character of different troop types within different periods. So, for instance, in Ancients, S, if you've got charging lancers who are good at smashing things, or a barbarian charge, S equals shatter, and it has an effect. So you get one of those, you go, whammy, I've got a shatter. You get that out of an S or a skull, you cause some aim. It's like punching a hole in the enemy line. So you get lots of hoots as people go shatter in the middle of a competition, and then people have gone 5 shatters in a row, and you go, oh dear, that's that Roman line, you know. So it adds a lot of fun to the game. But the S is other things too. So in the shooting bit, it's the slowing effect of fire. So S's contribute to how much you slow people down.
That doesn't sound as exciting as shatter.
No, the shatter's miles better. That's the best one. Yeah. Yeah, it's a shove for a pike phalanx, okay? So it's got all sorts of little characteristics.
Yeah, no, I want shatter. I want to go with shatter.
You can have shatter. Well, all you need to do for that is make sure you get some good barbarians or some medieval knights or get some elephants. They have both, so they're quite fun. But basically, the point is, it's a very simple system. Groups. All you need to do is you've got 2 bases fighting. All you need to do is work out which color you each roll the dice, read the result. And that's really important because ultimately that's what makes it a very simple game to get the hang of. All that happens is in the rules there's a table of factors because I'm covering 4,500 years of history. So you need something to do with it. But of all those factors, your army will only need 3. So the Roman army, for instance, the legionaries, all they need is impact weapon and melee. They need to do 2 factors. They're all their factors. And then the opponent, if they know theirs, that's it. It's all very, very interesting. Okay. And those dice are radically different in damage. So basically what happens with it is if you are fighting and you're equal, you will each get a green dice. The green dice is deliberately very volatile. It's the first one with 1 skull on it and 2 wounds, 1 S, and 2 blanks. It's a very volatile dice because of that 1 skull on it. So if you go head to head with things that I deem to be equal, this is going to be random and brutal, and you can't control who's going to win that one. That's going to be pretty spectacular. However, if you go in where you are,
and you've done it that way so that you get an outcome, you get a result.
You will get a result with a long line of those, but you won't have much control over it, okay? Because you're all deemed to be equal. The minute you have an advantage, as we call it in Storm, the opponent drops to white, and suddenly you've got twice the damage on average, and you've got the chance of doing a lot of damage if you roll skills. Okay. If you get a big advantage, which is just 3 factors up, you get a red against a white. And the red's got 2 skulls, 3 wounds, and an S. It does 2.5 times the damage, 3.5 times the damage of a white dice. Okay. Now, however, there's enough volatility that a lucky person can still overturn it. It can still go wrong, you know. You can still have it go wrong. So there's plenty of ups and downs in a Meg game that keeps it exciting and a bit amusing. But what you'll find is the best players tend to win. The better players tend to win 80% of the time. So,
so a question from one of the viewers, if I may. just because we kind of passed this bit a little bit, so I don't want to drop it. Shackles and Sprues there. I've no interest in points games and competitions. How well do the rules apply to historical games or their scenarios? Well, it's worth pointing out.
Sorry, Mike.
Because you do competitions, right? But you actually are big on refighting historical battles.
Yeah. What's very important is these rules are written the other way around. So they're written to give a great historical reenactment, and then are added the bits needed to allow the competition players to play it well with the point systems and such things. So you don't need point systems. You're better doing scenarios. You know, when we did the Attila game, there was no point system. We just designed the armies off the troops of the order of battle, and set it up that way and played the game out.
Did you hear that, Games Workshop?
We calculated the points later because they're interesting to see what the points would be because they're a prediction of who should win. So it's quite interesting, but it's the other way around for you, Mr. Sharko. It's all my rule systems are designed to give you the best possible refight, and then I just happen to know competition gaming pretty well, so I've created a point system that works. That's very good. There's a little twist to it as well. It's a game theory twist to it. The most point systems as well are flawed because what they'll do is they'll say, for example, you're superior and you're fully armored. Let's say you're 50 points. It'll say, well, plus 10 for superior and plus 10 for fully armored. But the reality is something that's got both is worth more than that total because they compound each other. They make each other
potentially better. Not on the system, but it isn't a uniform progression. Or
in a real world situation. So our system isn't additive. It's a lot cleverer than that. It's multiplicative for the big things, which means we balance the points so well that you can win with any army. There's no super armies. But rest assured, I never write rules to competition. Okay.
Sweet. It's good.
Okay.
I write rules.
Question on the proprietary base here. Sorry.
How many dice do you need?
How many dice do you need? I hate buying custom dice, which is fair. I mean, lots of games have them now.
Here's my Shark and Sprues. The full answer, first of all, is you don't need to buy the custom dice if you don't want. Okay, because you can do this with D6 if you think about it. If you take some red D6, some yellow D6, some green D6, when you roll the red one, treat a 5 and a 6 as a skull, treat a 2, 3, or 4 as an X, and treat a 1 as an S. So there you go. I've saved you the price of buying any dice at all. Okay. However, it's a lot easier to do it with the symbols on because you don't have to think. So these are not a gimmick. I really hate custom dice a lot because most of them are gimmicks. I don't really like many of them because they don't do anything. They just charge you money for something that you could do anyway. These ones actually have a function. They have a definite function because of the design of them. So it's easy. So, but you can do them all off a normal D6.
And as you mentioned it,
you take
are
a black
the tables printed somewhere?
Yeah, they're in the rules. Yeah, so you can just use it.
They're in the rules. The tables are printed in the rules.
In fact, there's a little article for me on the website of how to play Meg without buying any of the extra bits. You can make your own.
Go.
Yeah,
magic.
It's easy. So, but to explain this for the chap who asked, it's very simple. If you had a set of coloured 6-side dice, if you ever roll a black one, you treat 1 to 4 as nothing. You treat 5 as an X, and 5 as an S, and 6 as an X. If you're prepared to remember that, dead easy. You can play it with normal dice. I just recommend it's well worth having a set of these, and really you only need 1 set each. So for 10 quid, it's worth having the special dice.
Because that's what I think is sometimes people lose. The 6-sided proprietary 6-sided dice is usually just a D6 table that's just been printed on a dice, right? But that table is behind that. There is a result for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just simpler in this format.
Exactly.
It gives you much more flexibility over the outcome.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing about it is if we want to bring people in the hobby, we've got to make it look nicer. You know, so if you want to sit there and roll a bunch of boring red D6 and do the interpretation, fair enough. But I promise you, if you take this to a club with lots of kids playing war games, they won't look at you for a minute rolling D6. But you watch what happens when I take this to a war games place and start rolling those dice. There's a crowd around it looking at them.
Amen, brother. The wargaming hobby is aesthetic at its absolute core. It should look fantastic. The miniatures should look fantastic. Scenery should look fantastic. The components you need should look fantastic. Why would you spend money and time on a hobby that didn't look good?
Exactly. And if you think about the cost of a set of dice that are for real, they serve a function. On average, if you bought an army in metal, it's cost you £200. It's cost you God knows how many hours to paint it. You know, the paints to go with it and all the rest, and it's cost you, £25 for a rule book. I mean, do you really want to worry about £8 to £10 for a set of custom dice that make it look beautiful and make it? Personally, I think not, but there's no need to. There's no need to. Similarly, with the mechanisms for actually doing the movement, you can make those yourself if you want as well. But it's much better to have the cards or the discs that we have available because they're just much more beautiful and easier to use, and they cost.
Now we are technically due to finish in about 5 minutes. I have the myself.
So don't worry about the shooting. All that happens is you use the white dice, so it's less volatile. Fighting, I've already described. I've done a lot of this already. Let me tell you what we've done. We've through COVID, it's been very difficult. Shipping has become very difficult. It's very irritating for people. It takes delays, etc. So we're switching all rule systems as follows. From now on, all the rule systems are PDFs. So you can buy a downloadable PDF directly from the website, linked to a global print-on-demand service. So you can then get it printed beautifully in full color locally. You don't have any customs issues to deal with, and you don't have any packaging and posting expenses to deal with. You're all local. So if you want to print this out in northern China, you'll be able to get it in northern China and delivered to you for a couple of quid, and there'll be no customs involved. Okay, fully printed out, high quality, top quality printed full color book. Okay? All of them are going to be like that. All the goodies you need to play the game you can make yourself. So make them yourself if you want. Otherwise, you can buy them from the Plastic Soldier Company who stock them all. And now, because there's no longer a really heavy, massive, thick 120-page hardback rule book that costs a lot to post, these things are cheap as chips to post out. So it's a much more modern way of doing things.
And is that why they've been doing this in Siocast? Is about shipping?
Well, Siocast, one of the tricks with Siocast that's very nice is they're light. So it's an advantage to the customer. So you save on the figures.
And they're often old metal sculpts, aren't they? Which would have been very expensive to ship.
Exactly. So the figures themselves are 40% cheaper than the metal equivalent, but also the postage is often much. So you get a double whammy benefit. And they're beautiful now as well. They've figured out how to do it. The early ones are a bit ropey, and it took them a while to get the right quality of raw material. Instead of buying it from the people who sold the machines, it turned out there was a better one to have.
They've had the same problems that everyone's been having with Siocast. They're all talking about a new Wonder material that they've just changed to.
Yeah,
I'm waiting to review it. I know Warlord.
Yeah, it's much
Battlefront. We're talking about it. We interviewed the Siocast guy when we saw you at the Reading show. The PSC guy there was the Siocast caster.
Yeah, yeah. Chris,
he was heavily involved in it, and they're working with this new material, which certainly looked better.
It's superb.
I think it's a new technology. I think they all kind of had to find their way around it a little bit. Quality control could have been better at the beginning.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
And also, it's the other side of it is, I own a metal range, and actually, what you find is you want to design the figures a bit differently because it flows differently. So transferring straight from metal ranges into it wasn't as ideal as they first thought.
The handle dynamic pose is better in the Siocast. That's one of its opportunities it brings.
Yeah. Well, that's actually more to do with the sculpting. Is my Lurkio ranges, because I'm a fanatic as well. Every figure's different, so you get massive variety. So the late Romans are my sculpts, for instance. That's why there's so much variety. The Hun's the same. So it's another fanatic thing of mine. So I'll go very quick now. Now COVID is over. Max, I carry on.
I was going to say, if people want to try it, that 60-page PDF, they can download that now for free and they can try it.
The first free 60-page doesn't give you the rules. That what I've done is I've separated out. There's an intro section about the philosophy, all the characteristics, explains the logic behind the rules. So I thought, why don't we just give everybody that? You can read it, and then if you like the idea, buy the rules. Then you don't have to dump it in one go. So any of you can log on to www.mortem-et.gloriam.co.uk and you can download the 60-page full color intro. It's very beautiful for free. Give it a read, and if it all sounds rather cool, then you can buy the rules or come along and have a go. Okay? So it's designed to give you freedom to see that. In terms of where we're going now, is my aim will be to grow the player base to 5,000, which would make it the most played ancient battle game ever. We're probably number 2 to Hail Caesar right now. And then you have the same color system in different periods. So we've got a Renaissance set, we've got a fantasy set, we've got the Napoleonic set, we've got the Division of Steel set. All that happens is I'm a lot cleverer in how I use the system for different things. So for instance, the S effect in here, you'll see there's suppression in World War II. So it plays a different role in that game to give it the feel of World War II. And in the World War II system, instead of having a system of big lines, where there's a benefit for big lines, you get repeat activations of units as the theme of World War II. So higher quality troops in World War II do more per turn than lower quality troops. So I craft every set with the mechanisms to give the feel of the period. Napoleonics, you get movement by brigade, by division, by corps. So all these things are designed all around my philosophy of maximum historical feel, give you the very best refights first, and then add a point system so the competition gamers can have fun with it. Okay? And then the last real biggie to mention to you, and this I've been seeking for a while, is really important. Is a few years ago we went and bid for the rights to turn Rome Total War, the computer game, into a board game, which is, as a lot of you all know, probably the world's biggest military ancient history computer game. There are 5.5 million followers of it on Facebook, I think, alone, and God knows how many players. It's massive. Compared to us, it's just ginormous. So I am the lead designer of that. You'll find it on GameFound. It cost us a bob or two, but it's well worth it. The game plays amazingly, and the same dice that I've shown you are in that game and are used to resolve all combat situations. So we're going to try and get those dice in the hands of hundreds of thousands of board gamers who are a bit interested in history. Now imagine if we can get 1% of those to take up wargaming. Okay, we will double the size of the ancient wargaming population of the world, and that's my mission. Okay,
this is a huge point to tie in, isn't it? Because it's the, I think still Rome Total War is the version of Total War.
It is the version. Yeah.
The Warhammer is now huge as well, but of the historical games, which was the series,
exactly.
This was the one.
It's massive. Okay, so we've
heavily modded for years.
Yeah, and we've launched it through crowdfunding on GameFound. The thing funded in 33 minutes. Okay, we raised £550,000 to do the game. Okay, it comes out in the middle of next year. It's awesome. Everybody who's played it, from a board gamer to a war gamer, even my kids think it's amazing. But it gets everybody rolling the dice. What you get for your army, and this is where you could learn to war game, is you get a battle board and you lay your army out as cards, and the cards have symbols of what dice you roll against certain opponents, and you play the battle with cards instead of figures. And then if you like that,
there are battle games within it.
Yes, it's a battle game within it. Okay. So it's a big strategic thing with a very slick battle game that you can play in 2 to 3 minutes, or a more sophisticated one you can play in 10 to 15 minutes, where you literally do deploy the army. And then it's only a small step from that to say, well, why have cards? Why don't we have some figures? They'd look nice. And ta-da,
right. So this
Meg Factor. Okay.
You can play Meg from this. This is a legion. Okay, that's a legion. Let's go.
Exactly. So I say, okay, well now let's swap that card of legionaries for 2 bases of legionaries in Pacto, which represents a half legion, and let's swap those auxiliaries for 2 auxiliary, and let's swap those for 2 of those. And oh look, we've got a Pacto game. Can we play that? It's much better.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I like.
So the whole point is to
so what you're obviously going to get as a review copy of it when the time comes, right?
Obviously, we'll get you one of those, and I'll come and talk about that in more detail. But you will find within it the same core color system and the dice, and it works a treat in the game. And everybody who's test played it so far loves it, and it's now getting some storming reviews on the GameFound site. If you go on GameFound and look it up, read some of the comments. There's some lovely comments. The artwork's really fantastic, and it comes as a batch set of 4 games. You get the core game, which is 4 nations, so it's Rome, Carthage, Greece in generic, and barbarian tribes. And I've got some clever way of dealing with the barbarians. So you command all the barbarians, but with some difficulty because they're not really a united force. So that's quite entertaining.
Right, coherent, yeah.
They're not coherent. So you've got all of that. Then you've got
so again, it's that war with Hannibal. It's that moment.
That war with Hannibal. You've got the first.
That's Rome.
You've got the first and second Punic War within it. So you've got the first Punic War over Sicily with the main, because it was basically won at sea. So you've mainly the naval fights and everything that go on with that. So it's got naval fights in it. Then you can do the second Punic War and march Hannibal through, gather some troops, go into Italy, see how you do. All of those are there as historical things you can do. But basically you play a generic card. Yeah, it's got 3 and 1 veteran elephant card. So you can fill it full of elephants. You just don't want to come up against V-lights in the terrain by accident. They can be quite annoying. But yes, if you can thunder them into something close order, you'll have some good fun, yes. They'll cause lots of damage. So all of that. Yeah.
You said the middle of next year for this, didn't you?
This year, middle of this year. I
This
said next
year?
year.
Oh,
I said next year by
this
accident.
summer?
Yeah, this summer. It's going
this
to be
summer?
out end of Q2. Yeah, it should be out in the
Oh,
shop.
mate, so you can post me one now, then, right? You've got what? You've got demo copies already.
Well, we do have some demo copies, but I don't think there's one spare. But we can probably get you one. Yeah, I'll try and get you one. Remind me in a month's time. I'll see if we can get your demo copy over, and we'll get you reviewing it. It's and then just to carry on a little bit, just to tell the story. Sorry to eat up more of your time. The extension bits in Game Finder, then you get individual factions. So anybody who's bought into the big version of it gets the Ancient Britons, the Scythians, the Egyptians, Spanish as separate factions. So you could play 11 factions on that one game. There is then the Alexander expansion I've designed, which sits next to it, doubles the size of the board, and allows you to do Macedon.
It's got to go the other way.
Armenia, Parthia, India. Yeah. And if you want to, you can stick them all together and play the entire thing with 18 different nations and fight every battle using Meg instead of the battle system. And it'll probably take you a year, but it'll be great fun, and that's what I'll be doing.
And you'll need a club room to keep it in.
I've got one. I'll stick it in my office, and we'll use it as a campaign system with 18 players, and we'll do the whole thing that way. And that'll be pretty spectacular. Okay, and probably play them as Maximus. And then there's another game called MfA.
As you've mentioned it, the real hot terror of the Romans. We know so much about the war with Hannibal. He's the great beast, but the one nation that the Romans couldn't deal with, they kept trying and kept losing, was the Parthians.
Yes, indeed.
That was like, if you want to be an imperial Roman success, you go and do what the divine Augustus couldn't do, what Caesar couldn't do, what none of them could do. Beat the Parthians.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually,
Augustus
if you play a historical Meg game of that period of Rome against Parthia, you'll tend to get, on average, with equal players, Carrhae effectively played out. Because what will happen is the skirmishing horse archers will bombard the legionaries, but the legionaries have got shield covers, so they don't suffer for very quickly. So it's a very, very slow attritional thing. But eventually they'll nibble enough bases off or weaken them enough, and the Romans can't do enough in return because they haven't yet equipped themselves to shoot back, as they did later because of it. And then the cataphracts charge them when they're vulnerable and smash them. So you will get exactly Carrhae coming out as a typical event. And then you get the later Romans. The great thing about Rome, if you read about Roman history, is they were brilliant learners. They were bloody useless in battles a lot of the time. I mean, they lost more legions than you can number. All that happened is they came back with a few more later and won again. So they turned it around. So they were very resilient. But what they did brilliantly is they learned from everybody. They were brilliant learners. Everything they came up against.
Well, the hat and the chainmail is Gallic. The sword is Iberian. The shield is probably Samnite.
Exactly.
We're not quite
probably
sure.
Samnite. Exactly. So they nick everything they saw that was good. So then when they went
that's better than what we've got.
They thought Parthian cataphracts. They look good. Let's make some of those. And horse archers who shoot. Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's have a quick.
If anyone watching this, they're like Mortem, Gloriam. I like the sounds of this. So you sell it's Plastic Soldier Company, the publisher. Is that right?
Yeah, but you buy the rules now through the website. So in fact, funnily enough, the print on demand goes live on Friday. So if you go next week, you can buy the PDF or you can buy the print on demand and get it delivered locally. Yeah. All the dice.
If you want hard copy, they're no longer available, or are there still some left?
Hard copy, they still have a few left, but it's only about 90 copies are left. So basically, hard copy you now do through print on demand. It's better. You don't have to pay for the shipping. It's much better.
Yeah. The starter level of the game, what was that called?
So for those of you who've never played, wait another month. There's a totally separate, smaller Pacto rulebook with specific diagrams just for Pacto, so it doesn't bombard you with the extra complexity of the bigger game. It's designed for you all as beginners. That's a tenner.
Okay. And the Plastic Soldier Company starter armies is like a Pacto army.
That will give you a Pacto army, and I've designed the armies for you. They're on the website. You can just download the army.
And you'll scale that up with another box and another box and a few extra bits.
If you buy, roughly speaking, buy 2 boxes, you'll get a Magna army. Buy 3 boxes, you get a Maximus army. But then you'll want to find a few little neat things that aren't in plastic and you can buy them from the metal to fill it out. But that's exactly right. Yeah. If you've got a few seconds, I don't know if you have, if you want to take back.
Well, I just wanted to clarify, let people know where they can get these things if they want. If they want to buy Rome Total War, You said is the Kickstarter is over, or can they still buy on that page?
No, we've left the page open. It's a GameFound whatever it is. In fact, I'm going to just do something now and just find the page. Yes, it's GameFound.com is where it is.
Because I'm interested in Meg, but I'm really interested in this.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, you probably for all of you, you'd like starting from this, and then you'll end up playing Meg. Okay? I don't know whether you can show you the screen, share screen, and do this. But if I can share screen, just as a finale, you might like to all watch the video. Can you see it?
Did you say there was a video?
Yeah. Can I share screen from here? If not,
if you click present and it clicks share screen at the bottom.
Present, share screen, to my share screen working, share some screen. Okay.
You should be able to share like a Chrome window or something. Is one of the options.
Screen. Hang on, I think I can do it this way. Let me have a look. Yeah, that'll do. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen.
It's been 5 long months. The campaign against those barbarian bastards doesn't have an end in sight. We've been stuck in the mud and filth for so long. I must focus. The enemy marches on ferociously from the north, out of those damned forests. Now Carthage from the southern sands, threatening our waters. The Greeks, well, the Greeks remain our allies. For now. If we cross the river right now, all could be lost. If we delay, we just give the enemy time to fortify. Retreat is not an option. This can only end one way. Total war! Recruit and build epic armies. Units, march! Destroy your enemies in fierce battles. The gods are watching. Make sure they are not ashamed. Gain experience in battle and level up your armies. Use agents to trade, cause unrest, spy, and assassinate. Develop your faction and unlock new technology and deadly units. Build markets and defensive walls. This is Total War Rome, the board game.
Boom. There you
Back
go.
now on GameFound.
Sweet.
Hello.
So there you go.
There you go. What do you think of that?
Very cool.
Right. How do you like them apples?
Yeah.
Yeah, looks good. Looks good. All right. Yeah.
Back with you. There you go. Hope everybody saw that. But that's GameFound. If you go on there, you can. I mean, the good thing about backing it is you're getting it for less than half retail price. So it's
Wow.
Okay. And that's not going to be there for long if it's due for release in a couple of months.
Probably 2 months' time, and then we'll shut it down because then we'll be into the full final rollout.
Sweet. Okay. Friends of General Haig asked if there were. Did you say Picts was one of the playable factions, or is that too far north?
Britons.
There's Britons.
Ancient Britons is one of the playable factions. Yeah.
Okay. Where do we get to with the hobby? And I got a few bases of Soviets done, including. I do love this miniature, the Commissar with the megaphone.
Oh, he's brilliant. I love him. I've got him in lots of my armies. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how you command troops.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We use them as a morale booster for the Division of Steel for the Russians.
For shizzle. Oh, there's a troll.
Put it on big. Let's put it on. Let's put it on big. Look at that.
I did a bit on his weapon, and then did what all good miniature painters did. I lost interest and started painting this guy.
Cool.
Everyone loves a goblin.
Court.
Yeah.
Was that an unpainted miniature before you started tonight, Paul?
Yeah, it was black like that.
You're fast, man.
Yeah, I love designing games, but I'm really jealous of you lot modelling and painting because guess what? I love it, but I haven't got time to do any.
John.
Hello.
Hello. All right. I'll tell you what, next time I'm on, I'll show you my simple introduction to dice game called Invasion Earth with rather nice Martians.
Right.
Sounds good.
You'll like those. They're a good fun.
You were busy, so you didn't get any hobbying in, did you?
No. Any more questions from the field out there?
last chance, guys. Have you got any last questions?
Quick
about that
before my phone switches off.
Yeah,
John, are we going to play Meg?
Yeah, let's wait, as you said, for that £10 little rule book and play the Pacto game. Let's start there, and then yeah, sounds good.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I've done it before for people. You get that, I'll run you a demo game over Zoom. So you guys play, and I can help you learn. How's that? For
Wow.
we can do that with your own game when it comes out. We get some guys down here to play it, and you can umpire it, and we'll stream it.
Done. So
how long does a game normally take?
It's about a 3-hour game-ish. It's a big game.
We might have a loo break in it.
Well, yeah, you will. It's a sizable game to play. It's a chunky game. It's got a lot in it, a lot of richness to it.
Rosie says, "Is that Turbo Man?" I assume that's Johnny's doll, is it, over there?
It must have been. Yeah, certainly not me. I definitely wouldn't be described as Turbo Man these days. Yeah.
It's Turbo Man.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah.
Turbo Man. Who got me that?
You can see which eras we come from, because you're all doing the Turbo Man bit, and I'm trying to see what books Mike's got behind him.
Yeah, I know. This is like a little mini game. You can see if they ever change.
I know, yeah. I'm seeing what you got. I'm thinking, I've got that one and that one and that one. Yeah, I'll see
yeah. I look for me wall with animal, but I was looking for Livy. I should have moved in more central.
But all us historians, we just have to learn. This is about fun first, aesthetics second.
Yeah. It's good to know that stuff is, that research and knowledge is behind it, though.
It is. I've done the work, so you don't need to do it at this point. And then when people want to learn why it's as it is, they can read a book. That's fine. We'll put them in the right direction. It's been a pleasure, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Do you know what? I always do this, and I've got the calendar here. I'm going to tell you who it is. I have forgotten. 20. What will be the next one? 15th. Simon Hall, followed by. It really is the guy who I keep talking about. Seth Paradon is the one who's next on the 14th of March. He is the deputy director of Camp Shelby, which is American Military History Museum, and I think former military base. And he runs the Unauthorized podcast of the Pacific War. More and talk about World War II in the Pacific. I'm hoping he's going to give us a whistle-stop tour through the Guadalcanal campaign.
That'd be awesome.
Because he's been covering it in immense detail in his podcast, and he just wrapped it up.
Yeah.
But he might be a bit fed up of it because he's been doing it. He got into so much detail. As him and a retired submarine captain, I've been through it in great detail. That's what we've got coming up. Thursday, for those of you that don't have little children, is World Book Day. So I'm hoping to record a short story for you all. An English myth that you probably haven't heard, Tim the Tinner, I think it's called, or Tom the Tinner, and I'll put that on the other channel where I do the library type stuff, but I'll put it on the Facebook page if you want me to read you a bedtime story. Simon, it's been great having you on. It was lovely to have Paul on, see the brothers Kalashnikov on the show, and we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you for watching.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.